Hey everyone, it's Ken here doing a special video today for you, requested by a fellow YouTuber named Habeas J. He does a channel on North Idaho homesteads, and he reached out to me a little while ago and he asked me if I would cover some aspects and safety regarding kerosene lanterns. He asked me a bunch of questions, and yeah, I told him I'd try to address everything to the best of my knowledge. So the first question is about emergency and blackouts, which is a good subject to have because, yeah, kerosene lanterns are very good to have on hand for emergencies and blackouts. That's right, because you need a source of light and possibly a source of heat to have. And you do get quite a bit of heat out of a kerosene lantern. Or several if you choose to. You could slightly warm up a room if you had to, although I'd advise keeping a window slightly cracked because you do still get fumes from the kerosene and everything like that. But yeah, they're very handy to have, and kerosene burns a long time in the fountain, and they're highly recommended for that. And here's a quick demonstration of how much light these kerosene lanterns actually can put out. What we tried to do is match the camera settings to actually see what we're seeing here live as we film. And I'm in a completely dark room in my garage with one antique Dietz Blizzard number 2 with a 7/8 wick lantern. And as you can see, I can comfortably see around my garage pretty well. And occasionally, if the power fails, I may have to actually come out here and do some things like that. But yeah, very good light output. Next question I have is about the storage of kerosene. I actually kind of use two different kind of fuels right now. I use clean heat, which I believe is like a synthetic kerosene, and I also use 1K kerosene. To safely store them, I pretty much leave them in their original containers. I store them out here in my garage, which is firewalled away from my home if something should happen, hopefully. But for the most part, I store my reserves in my garden shed, which is farther away from the house. So that's probably a pretty good idea to keep in mind when using storage. Or if you have actually have a flammable cabinet, if you have access to a metal cabinet that's vented with, for the fumes, will be my number one suggestion. But being that if you don't have that, I would try to say keep it away from your house. And they store very well in just their plastic containers for years and years to come. Next, I'd like to go over the question about safety and indoor operation. Indoor operation is usually pretty safe. However, like I said before, you might want to crack a window open if you're burning these for any long time, because they do produce vapors. But they are relatively safe. Also, if you do knock it over, they are designed to self-extinguish. You may get some fuel that leaks out, but generally the fuel doesn't combust or burn by itself, I should say. If it does puddle, generally needs the wick to kind of vaporize it. And they do actually. These lanterns are designed so that the air actually gets choked out from the tubes, and they self-extinguish. So generally they're pretty safe, but haven't had that happen. Always keep in mind, be mindful of where you're using it at. Try to make sure it's on a good, sturdy base and not tippy anywhere, and generally you shouldn't have a problem. So basic operation, I'll just cover that real quickly. It's pretty much self-explanatory. You could either use matches or a good long lighter to light these, but basically what you want to do is use your lift lever here, raise up your globe, slightly turn up your wick so that you have access to it from the flame. And the main thing is you don't want to burn them too high. Just turn that down, and then let your cone do the work for you and spread the flame. I see a lot of people on YouTube doing lantern videos, and they just burn these things wildly high. The cone is your friend. You want to keep that wick below the top of the cone, and you can see the difference. You can't almost burn these things too low, but you can burn them too high. And if you crank it up pretty much any further than that, you'll get smoke, you'll burn your wick, and it's not a good idea. So be mindful of, you know, where your flame is at. You'll get the feel for it. Like I said, you can almost not go too low. If you go too low, the lantern will just go out. That's one way of putting it out. You can turn it down until it starts to do its little dance. You'll see the flame. It's hard to get on camera, but it pop, 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 and it'll, within about 20-30 seconds, it will go out. Or if you're not comfortable waiting, you can just raise the globe, blow it out like a candle. You get a little puff of smoke that way, but that's always a good way to check and make sure it's out too. Alright, now for some buying tips about buying lanterns, for those of you who may be first time buyers, some tips on what to buy and what not to buy. Obviously, you wouldn't want to buy something like this. Although for the more experienced person, valuable parts. There's still good parts to be salvaged. But if you want something right off the bat, a lot of people are tempted to buy these. Now these are like kind of your Walmart lanterns, your things that you get in modern, I would say a modern lantern, made in China. Now I personally stay away from these. I have some of these that I bought early on, but let me give you the rundown of what most of the time the lift levers, a lot of times you'll see see how the globe pops right out of the top. They don't really sit well in the top. They're made of very light metal. The glass is very thin. The wick risers usually don't have a good grip. You see, I'm turning, although it's a dry wick. I don't actually have fuel in this. They will burn, they will perform. I mean, if you absolutely have to have something, it does work. However, I really recommend staying away, and actually I would check at your local antique place, even though they tend to charge a lot. But eBay is a good place to get some of the older ones. However, you got to watch out for leaks. A lot of the older ones have pinholes and they have leaks in them. But yeah, you want to, probably the main thing is to check the fountain, make sure you don't see any holes or any leaks. But yeah, like I said, I would tend to stay away from these. They have really thin glass. Also, if you do want to buy one, you might want to check out the top of the, let me see if I can just give you a quick example here. A lot of times you'll get cracks in the top of the globe here. You want to check out and make sure you got a pretty smooth top of the globe, bottom of the globe as well too, because as these heat up, if you get a crack in here, as this heats up, sometime it'll just crack and you'll crack your globe. So you want to make sure that the globe is in really good shape. Now a lot of times they're dirty, they're covered with soot. You'll get ones that are totally black, which means nothing. They clean right up real easy. Main thing is just to make sure there's no cracks or anything like that to worry about. But don't be afraid to buy one if it's dirty. They're real easy to clean, not a problem. Like I said, what else? The cone. Oh yeah, the cone. Make sure your cones. Let me have a. Let's see. I may have some spare cones right here. Here's a spare burner and a cone. You want to make sure your cones are nice and smooth and the slots are all in good shape. A lot of times you'll see these are all chewed up and bent in there. You can bend them back to a certain extent. In fact, occasionally you'll find that you may have to reshape a cone if your lantern's not burning properly. But just be aware. Make sure it's in good shape. Make sure your wick riser turns. And another thing to try to check is there's actually little geared teeth inside there. When you turn the knob, the little geared teeth are actually what raise and lower your wick. A lot of times these little teeth can actually become loose on the shaft. In other words, that the shaft will just freely spin and it won't cause the teeth to spin. I've had a few problems in the past with that you think you're going to raise the wick and you're turning and turning and turning, but those teeth aren't turning inside, so your wick is not going to raise or lower. It's just going to stay frozen in place. So just make sure that works. It's hard to do it with a dry wick. A lot of times, until your wick is really saturated with kerosene, the kerosene actually provides lubrication for it to go up and down. A lot of times you really shouldn't do that on a dry wick. However, if you're checking one out at a flea market, just ever so slightly, if you want to try to raise and lower it like a 1/4 inch, just to see if those gears are engaging, I'd recommend it. But don't force them, because like I said, I've seen where people force them and they'll strip the shaft right out from the teeth. Trying to think. Oh, also your fuel cap. Make sure your fuel cap is the proper cap. Make sure that it threads in. Make sure that the threads are right. You'll come across all kind of caps. People use bottle caps, Coke caps. They'll lose the caps and they'll just set them on there. You can buy replacement caps for these, but for the time being, if you want, instant operation, make sure you have a cap. You can use a cork. I've seen a lot of people just trim a cork down, shave a cork, stick it in there nice and tight. Will work fine for you. It doesn't look the prettiest, but it will function. But I would definitely recommend to have that sealed off with something and have a cap. Also, another thing, I guess, will be how to remove the globe. Easiest way to remove the globe is to take your now. There's a lot of misnomer about the bail handle and the pull tab. A lot of people will tell you that you can hang a lantern from this. You can probably hang it, but it's not recommended. This is actually what raises and lowers the spring mechanism. So if you try to hang a lantern, you may end up causing, depending on how much fuel and how weak the spring is, you may actually raise the crown, causing the globe to come loose. So that's another suggestion. If you are going to hang a lantern, always use the bail, and make sure your bail is secured. Bails are removable. There's two little hooks that they're kind of bent upward. Sometimes if they're not bent properly, could come right out and your lantern can fall real easy. But if they're in there nice and secure, and you can hang this, you could burn it. Just keep it below, I'd say at least a good 4 or 5 feet below your ceiling. You don't want to heat up your ceiling. They do throw out some heat, these lanterns. And with all that being said, like I said, I would try to get a nice older one. However, if you do buy like a newer Dietz lantern, there are still some Dietz that are sold brand new from various places online. They're fine as well. But like I said, I would try to stay away from the unbranded Chinese lanterns. So in closing, I'd like to say, collecting lanterns could be a necessity or a hobby, depending on how you approach it. But it's something to have fun with. But be cautious, be safe. And yeah, I mean, you'll get the hang of it as you use your lanterns. You'll notice different things, how they act. Their different lanterns have different personalities. Some burn better, some don't burn too well. You'll get techniques for trimming the wick. Trimming the wick, I personally just straight across trim the wick. That's another thing I kind of forgot to cover. I didn't really touch on. But if you do have some questions, I have an email that I'll post that you can catch me on, and I'll try to answer your question the best I can. But also check out Habeas' channel below, for that's the reason why I'm doing this video. And yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody stay safe, take care, and we'll see you real soon in another lantern video.